at that point, you're not there to play it safe. Like if you're not taking risks, you're not competing.
It's empowering. I mean, anybody who's done a CrossFit workout, you finish your CrossFit workout and you're like, I'm on top of the world.
Yeah.
Like a hunger for competition and like that super intense structure, routine. I still had that desire.
Listen to the way people feel and the motivations for doing the things that they did. It was like they were describing me to a T.
I'm not trying to solve everything for you, but I know that sometimes you just need somebody to listen.
Learned the most is how to fill my cup by filling others.
Welcome to the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast. Join me as I talk with passionate people about their life's failures and successes, and most importantly, what keeps them hungry for more. What's up, dogs? Welcome back to another episode of the Hungry Dog Barbell Podcast. Today, we're joined by Justin Mariano, CrossFit coach and CrossFit competitor. Justin and I sit down and talk about his early days in action sports, finding CrossFit as an exercise program, being a DIYer, and what he looks for in a good CrossFit gym. Tune in to hear more from Justin and myself.
Always a sports fan, diehard sports fan, like Philly sports. I bleed Eagles green.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I've always had a lot of strong opinions on sports, and being like a Philly sports fan, my dad is extremely opinionated. I grew up in that type of environment. So naturally, when I got into CrossFit, I just took that same energy. I got a lot to say, and I'm not afraid to say it.
I feel that, dude. But what about playing sports and fitness for you? Like, tell us about that background for you.
Sure. Yeah. So grew up like super active, played every sport you can think of. My dad was just really into me playing sports, team sports. I played baseball and hockey mostly, but I dabbled in everything except for soccer. He never really wanted me to play soccer because he wasn't really into it. But I dabbled in football for 3 days and then I quit the team. But mostly fun. Baseball and hockey growing up. I wasn't great at basketball, but I still tried here and there. But those were my two sports growing up. And then as I got older, I got more into action sports. So kind of got burned out on the team sport thing. It's like the classic, like dad's yelling at you and instilling, that work ethic and stuff. And
right.
I don't know. Once I got to be a teenager, I was like, I don't know if I wanted to do this in high school. So I didn't. And I just kind of went my own path. You feel like
you looked around and like you saw other dudes that were like not working as hard as you, and that was hard to deal with? Is that kind of the vibe?
Sort of. Yeah. Like, I was always a pretty talented athlete, but like I would be really good at like two things, but like basic stuff I would be really bad at. So like I would get benched a lot, and like there was just certain things didn't quite click with me. So I had to work really hard to figure those things out. And, there was a lot of kids that were just naturally better at it. So I was giving my 110% effort, right? Like giving a full effort in practice and in sports, and then going home and practicing until my hands bled, but then still not, quite catching up to other people. So, that kind of burned me out a little bit. And then like the politics angle of like team sports in that era was really annoying too. Like dad's the coach, so his son's going to be, I was a catcher for baseball. Right. So like, my coach, his son was a catcher. So guess who didn't catch that?
How that goes.
Yeah. So, just exactly crap like goes. That. Yeah. So I combine that with like teen angst and stuff like that. And I was like more into action sports because I was like, I could do this with my friends and like push myself in this unique expression of movement and just have more fun. I'm not getting yelled at by anyone. So I guess I fell more into that zone.
When you say action sports, like tell us, what does that mean?
So started off as a rollerblader. That was like my main thing because I played hockey, and this was like late 90s, right? Like X Games and people doing flips and grinding rails and stuff. And I was like, that's really cool. So I started trying it with my hockey skates, and then eventually got a pair of aggressive skates. And the transition was natural. And then I started skateboarding too, and dabbled in BMX as well, and just did all three of those things. I got bullied to no end because back then it was like cliquey. It was like the skateboarders hated the rollerbladers, and the rollerbladers, hated everyone, and the BMXers and the skateboarders hated each other. And I was like, I just actually like doing all of it. So,
right.
Like I just kind of beat to my own drum on that one. But yeah, I fell into that, and that was most of my high school experience. Right towards the end of it, I got into skiing because I was like I snowboarded here and there, and I didn't really quite pick it up because I was, rollerblading was like the best one. I was the best at rollerblading, so naturally that was like a natural transition to freestyle skiing, and really started to dig in deep on that and want to make a push to like see what I could do with it. So towards the end of high school, once I graduated, I moved out west and wanted to chase that dream. So,
oh yeah,
it's just a lot of different action sports from like teenage years to like early to mid 20s.
I love that, and I feel like first you just low key described the plot to freaking Brink right there, and then second, if you're listening to this and you don't understand that reference, then you might as well turn the podcast off because you're not going to understand like a lot of the rest of the stuff we're going to say.
Team Pop and Suds for life, man.
Hell yeah, let's go. I was gonna say like Johnny Tsunami a little bit, freaking because like the ski and the snowboarding thing.
Yep.
But both of those first two movies were so sick, man. Like they don't make stuff like that anymore for kids.
No, dude, I had Brink on VHS, and that was like one of the VHSs I wore out, like because I like rewinded it so many times to watch. I used to watch that, so like that movie was another big motivator for between the X Games and Brink. Like that's why I wanted to rollerblade because I was like, this is cool. And I already knew how to do it because I played hockey. So
right around those years is when freaking the X Games, the summer ones, was in Philly too.
Yeah,
I remember going to that.
Yep, I was there.
Freaking golden years.
Yeah. Yep.
So like you were talking about, like you would go home and push yourself hard to keep learning skills. Like, where did your competitiveness come from and like your drive? Is that from your dad who was like teaching you all the sports, or did you just naturally develop it? Like, where do you think that came from?
Most of it came from my dad. He was extremely competitive, dude. He was a pro bowler. So, and he worked a regular job like as a banker, but like bowled like a nut on weeknights and weekends. And that, so we always kind of had that like in our family, like chase some crazy, weird dream stuff, like on, when you can. So I got that from him. Right. And he pounded that into me as a kid, and team sports was like, you got to work hard. You got to be able to do this stuff with your eyes closed. Like you get better through repetition. You find little fun games to learn how to teach yourself stuff, and you just do that in your free time. And that was how I was growing up. And then naturally, when I started doing my own thing, I just took the same attitude. Like I didn't know how to turn it off, probably to a fault, but there was definitely some times where I made it a fun activity on fun for sure. But you know what? Whatever. That's who I am.
Everyone goes through that, man. It's literally a part. That's why burnout is so common among athletes.
Yes, sir.
And it's like some things are hobbies, and then some things you want to put all of your chips into that barrel and like let it set you on fire. And that's kind of how you get better at a lot of different things, But the bad thing about fire is it burns you,
Yes, it does. It can certainly.
So you talk about moving out west,
and
you tried to pursue freaking like the snow sports. Like, was that your goal after high school? Is that where you were headed? Like, what were you thinking after high school? What did you want to do?
Yeah, I wanted to be a pro skier, or at the very least live like a pro skier and try to get like a job somewhere in the ski industry. That was kind of my goal, is just make that my life. And I followed.
Where you go? Did you have any like I don't know, outline or like someone to look to, like, okay, I need to go do these things because this person did these things and they are in the position that I want to be in? Or were you just winging it completely?
A little bit of both. So when I was like 15, 16, 17, and I had started skiing. So freestyle skiing was kind of like in its infancy, right? So like you had rollerblading and skateboarding and BMX and even snowboarding being super popular and growing throughout the 90s, early 2000s. But freestyle skiing wasn't really a thing. So like the X Games used to have ski blading, which is like just like the little short skis that you can die on. So like kind of like rollerblading, but on the snow. And they wound up taking that out because people thought it was lame. So then they started this freestyle skiing thing, right? And I kind of caught that wave right when it started, and I had some friends from Pennsylvania that were incredible at it, and they had moved out west and started just basically became pros overnight. A lot of like the internet stuff, like making edits and videos and things like that. blowing themselves up on the internet back then when the internet was, content creation was like a super in its infancy. So I just kind of rode that wave.
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I just packed my stuff, went out west, met up with my friends that were legit pro skiers at the time, and just followed them around. That was it. So I had a little bit of a plan. It was like, get out there and follow them. But the rest was just kind of winging it for sure.
Hell yeah, man. Shit, that's like I don't know, I want to call it like, I guess, a lost art now. People like just chasing the dream like that, like, are you that type of person? Like, were you scared at that time? I guess I should ask.
No, not at all.
Your future would look like?
I didn't look too far ahead. Like, I just kind of lived like for tomorrow. That was it. And today, I was like, hey, let's get somewhere now and let's do it again tomorrow. And then the day after that, we'll figure it out.
Hell yeah, man. It's chasing the dream like that.
Yeah. Full send.
So what role does working out and fitness have to play in all this? When did you start working out?
So when I was a skier and doing that a lot, I got injured. I fractured my fibula, and that's when things kind of started to go a little downhill for me. I was having a lot of trouble with my knee. I didn't do any form of like rehab or anything like that. I just took time off, and I was always naturally fit, right? Like I was pretty skinny. I was like 145, 150. I could eat whatever I wanted. My activity level was super high, and I was a kid.
So you were super active kid, yeah.
Right. Yeah, like I rode that for as long as I can. I fractured my fibula when I was 20, and like 3-4 months of just sitting on your butt, not doing much, and then trying to get back into it wasn't quite the same. I lost some strength in one of my legs, and I was also living an incredibly unhealthy lifestyle. Like pro skiers do not live well. We lived in crappy apartments with like 10 people and slept on the floor and ate whatever we could and drank a lot and, just partied, right? Like that was it. We just partied, and then got up the next day and killed ourselves on the mountain. So, that just catches up to you. And then combined with the injury, I was getting very overweight. I had shot up to like 190. I couldn't do the stuff that I wanted to do. And I realized that I need to get in shape, and, getting in shape is like working out, like when I was 14, 15, I had some friends that were into that, and, we went to the gym and we lifted and did like the classic, bench and, gym bro stuff. And I didn't really like it. I did it. Yeah. Like I did it and I got so sore the next day, I couldn't do anything. So I was like, this isn't for me. And I just kind of wrote it off, but I went back and tried that, right? Like that was what I did. And just to try and lose weight and get back in shape after I had, had like a rough, like 2 years, right? Like recovering from injury, putting weight on, unhealthy lifestyle. And that was where fitness kind of came in. Was just trying to figure it out. And I've always been a DIYer, so trying to figure it out while also not asking for help.
Yeah. I kind of picked that up, and I want to ask you about that
Sure.
like a little bit more to the conversation. But like, tell me about like that 2 years. Like, were you back on the slopes? Were you like experienced a lot of setbacks? Like, how was that going?
Yeah, I was skiing. I just slapped the knee brace on, and honestly, just I would smoke weed to alleviate pain, but my stamina and my just like speed and all that was kind of really affected. I couldn't ski for very long anymore, and I couldn't follow the people that I wanted to follow. It was rough. And when you have the mental, but you don't have the physical and they don't match up, then your mental starts to go. And then once that really happened for enough times in a row for me to realize like, you got to start doing something about it, then that's when I started doing something about it. So it took about 2 years. I had moved to Vermont. I was back home for a little bit, and then I went to Vermont to start going to school because I was like, well, I don't think we're going to be a pro skier anymore. Like let's maybe start thinking about joining the real world, but we'll still chase a little ski dream here and there. But when I was in Vermont, that's when I decided I needed to try and lose some weight and start getting strong and figure that whole thing out.
So all that kind of came together at the same time. So what did you go to school for first? I'll ask that. What were you trying to do?
I was going to school for graphic design, web design. So I wanted to kind of pair that somehow in the ski action sports industry. Grew up making my own brands and like filming a lot of stuff, making our own videos, like, our own, like a lot of photography work, web design, all that type of stuff. So that's what I was going to school for, thinking I could pair that with what I did and make a career out of it somehow.
Put it together. Like, so then what takes you from like, oh man, I don't really like this working out shit, to like, okay, I'm going to do this to get better at skiing and try to like come back to it? Like, what was it that finally clicked for you that you started to like it?
Well, so I started to see some results, right? So I grinded pretty hard, and back then, like I said, I was super DIY. I wasn't like asking for help. I was also incredibly broke, so I didn't really have a choice. So, like, I was hiring a personal trainer, but I went on, like everything else in my life, I went on the internet and found bodybuilding.com forums, and in there is where I learned about like strength programs, starting strength, right? So I got the starting strength book. And I was going to Planet Fitness and like using the Smith machine and just like 5x5, and then hopping on the treadmill, running a mile. And I did that for, 6 months, and I dropped like 20 pounds and I looked good. And then ski season hit and I was like on top of it. Like I could do everything that I used to be able to do. And I felt great and I looked great and it was awesome. So I guess that's when I started to get more bought in, was like, I got past that initial grind phase, and, I started to see results. Again, I was like 21. So, right. Like you touch a barbell and you stop eating crap and you curb the drinking, and it's like, you start getting muscular and big and
you lose
strong.
5% body fat just doing that. Right. Yeah. Like real quick.
Yeah. So there's a caveat there, but that's what kind of initially, I guess, hooked me.
Love that, dude. So it got you that buy-in that you were just talking about there. So when does CrossFit come in? Like, tell me the first time you heard about CrossFit, and like, were you one of those dudes who were like, oh, I hate that shit. That's how you get hurt. That's all. It's so stupid. Were you like into it right away?
No, I was never, as an action sports guy, I was drawn to CrossFit, and I had a couple of friends from Vermont that were into it, and they went to Champlain Valley CrossFit, actually, CVCF. Home of Matt Fraser and Danny Horan's gym.
Yeah.
And, that's where they went. So I was curious about CrossFit. I had absolutely no clue really what it was, because like back then it wasn't super clear. Like if you went to CrossFit.com, it was just a bunch of workouts and you're like, what the hell is this? And I was educating myself on more structured like strength or bodybuilding, like training programs and nutrition. Like I remember I was tracking my macros in an Excel spreadsheet. I was following starting strength or 5-3-1. So like I was trying to figure out CrossFit, because I'm like, well, what the hell? Like this is how I know how to do fitness right now. It's like you do this week, you do that this week, the next week you progress on here, right? That was kind of what I had learned, and that was all I knew. So I was trying to figure out what CrossFit was, because it was random, right? So eventually I just wound up going and doing a free class at CVCF, and I got my butt kicked. And then I was like, screw this. but they planted the seed for a later date, which we can get into.
So you've always been like this do-it-yourself person, like learn. Where did you get that from? Like, was that just born in you, or did you get that from your dad also?
I definitely didn't get it from my dad or both my parents. They were not do-it-yourselfers. Honestly, I think I was an only child. So like I didn't have any brothers or sisters. And like, I also didn't have a ton of friends growing up, like, because I just lived on a block we didn't have any kids.
Yeah.
And all my friends like were friends from school. Right. And like Philly's a big place. So like, like my friends didn't live close. So it was like, if I wanted to go play with my friends, it had to be set up and I had to be driven there or whatever. So like, I didn't have a lot of neighborhood kids around me so I just had to figure stuff out for my own until I got a little bit older. And then, I wound up meeting, more people and riding my bike to different neighborhoods and stuff. But I think that's what it is.
Be more independent.
Yeah, I was just always independent, and I had to make my own fun and my own stuff. So I guess that's it.
Has it always been like good for you to be that like do-it-yourself person and independent like that, or have you ever faced like, damn, if I could ask for a little bit more help, I might have things be a little bit easier?
I think as I get older, I'm more willing to ask for help, right? Because it's like you don't have to take all this on, but still,
yeah,
I need to be involved in some things, right? Like that, because that's how I learn too, right? Like if you just tell me do this, like I'm going to ask you why. I need to have buy-in for me to do it. And I think that first time I did CrossFit, I wasn't getting the why like right away. I had been, doing starting strength and 5x5, we put 5 pounds on our lifts, and, and now I'm here and it's like, well, there's this nut job over here and he's snatching like 300 pounds. And like, there's this guy over here and, he's got his shirt off and he's got a 12 pack, but he's like doing 100 kettlebell swings in a row and he can run a 400 and like, almost damn near a minute flat. So it's like, what's going on here? Like, how are you guys doing this? Like, what's your program for the day? Right. It's like, you guys really just come in here and like coach writes something on the whiteboard and then you do it. And then you look like that. Like, I don't know. I didn't have the buy-in at the time, and the workout made me want to throw up. So I was like, I don't know about this.
I don't love throwing up, so I don't know about this.
Yeah,
that was like
that's exactly what it was. I was like, I could go do my
days of CrossFit,
Oh, I did that, and I did the outlaw way actually for a little bit. We could talk about that.
That was the time. So like, let's talk about it right now, dude. Like, what gave you the why? What made you buy in more?
So I think over time, right? So I had done that, bodybuilding type powerlifting ish, whatever, starting strength, Ripito, Wendler crap, it's not crap. It's awesome. But
Wendler's great. Everyone out there listening right now, if you want to get strong and you don't want to hire a coach, go Google Wendler, and just do that, follow that.
I followed Wendler for almost 2 years. Like it was,
and then after you do it for 6 months or something like that, then come to Justin or myself and get some coaching, because then we can actually get you like real strong. But keep going.
Of
so
course.
You did that stuff for a little bit, and then I guess you got bored.
So I did that. I wound up moving back home and finishing school at Drexel, and I was working out at the Drexel gym a lot, and I was getting burned out on the fitness thing, right? Like I had gotten pretty strong. I looked good. Like, I was pretty close to the body weight I am now. And I was just getting bored. I was like, I'm just going to the gym every day and like just doing this stuff. Like I'm not competing in anything. Like the competition, the desire is not there. Like I don't have a social outlet. I see other people working out with each other and I don't have that. I'm like, it's kind of lame. So, we had a weightlifting platform in the Drexel gym, and I had always kind of saw it in the corner of my eye. And there was this guy that came in one day and he was clean and jerking very heavy. We had kilo plates. It was definitely over 120, and like the bars whipping, and he had a CrossFit shirt on, and he was an excellent lifter. Even looking back, like that image is burned in my mind of him clean and jerking like a lot of weight, and like the bar's bending and it's making all this noise. And he's with his friends and they're like high-fiving each other and chalk's going everywhere. And I'm like, yo, that is like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's like the cow strength videos, like in person, right? Like those old
pretty
school
much
cow strength. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Dude, like they had like the old do-in lifters on, and like one of them had the what are they? The Adidas with the wood heels.
Oh, the Addy Power boys.
Yes.
Oh man, I love them.
Yeah. So like, dude, it was cool. Like this was probably 2012-ish, right around then. So I was like, that's one of the coolest things I ever seen. So they had a CrossFit shirt on. I had no idea Olympic weightlifting existed. I just assumed they were doing CrossFit. So later that day, I just kind of went further. All right. I was like, okay, we're going to learn about CrossFit. And I went on CrossFit. I found the CrossFit journal. I read what is CrossFit. I read all the good journal entries from Glassman. I started to understand it a little bit more. And I'm like, oh shit. Okay. This is kind of cool. And then I found the CrossFit games and I started watching some of that. And I'm like, okay, like this is incredible. Like, you mean to tell me I can compete in exercising? Like, light bulbs going off in my head. And I was, one of the biggest videos, I guess, that you could say changed my life. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it was when Savan followed Froning around it was like Rich and Dan. It was like Rich's so-called life. And I was like, yo, these guys just hang out all day and just lift and like do crazy shit. Like they walk on their hands and, I'm like, I want to do all this. Right. Yeah. So I pick out a workout. I find one. For some reason, I think bear complex is a good idea for me to try the next day in the Drexel gym. So I go to the Drexel gym and I'm like, I don't even know how to clean. So like, maybe let's start there. So I started trying to figure that out. I got pretty decent. Let's fast forward a couple of weeks. I'm like, all right, now I'm going to try bear complex. Did not get very far at all. I was like, blew out something in my hip. I was like in pain. I couldn't walk for a week. And I was like, all right, you know what? I need help. I can't do this on my own. So I Googled, where the closest affiliate is, walked in, and then I was a CrossFitter.
Hell yeah. So where you talk about the true bear complex, where it's like the 5 movements for like 7 rounds, holding on the whole way. Oh man. I remember it was like a few years in before I actually tried that, man, and I'd only ever done it for like max load. And when I did the real way, I was like, oh, this is different. This is hard.
You can't put the bar down. I tried it with 95 pounds and I didn't even finish. And then like I said, like I just tweaked something in my hip and couldn't walk for a week. And that was like the first time I had ever tweaked anything lifting. So I was like, all right. You might get hurt doing this. So maybe go to a CrossFit gym, because I knew that existed, right? Like I had already gone to one, but I wanted to do it right.
Yeah, I love that. So, first, dude, I think that video you're talking about, that's where like What's Rich Doing came from, right?
Yes.
Remember when that was a big thing?
I'm pretty sure, because it was funny. It was like he just followed him around. He didn't eat any food. He drank milk and he had peanut butter and jelly mixed together. I also tried that, by the way, with like horrible results. But yeah, it was just I like fell in love with his life, because I was like, yo, I want that life, because I kind of did that already. Like I would stay at the Drexel gym for hours and I would lift and figure out other stuff to do, whether let's just do like 30 minutes walking on the treadmill, or like let's hop on the rower and row some 500 intervals, or like I was kind of already doing CrossFit. I was front squatting and all that stuff through 531 that I had exposure to. But I wasn't putting it all together in the form of CrossFit, and I certainly wasn't doing it at any competitive pace, but I thought I could. And I knew I would probably need a little help from like an actual coach and affiliate if I wanted to actually do what I wanted to do with it. So
that's funny. So from from that video, just like you, it birthed dozens and hundreds and thousands probably of people that like walk in and say, hey, I want to do this. I want to live the CrossFit lifestyle. Like just a few weeks ago, I had a girl walk in who's been a regular personal trainer before. Like, hey, I want to do this full time. I'm like, all right, well, like you got a couple of years to go try to dig in and figure out how to do that full time. It's been like a process for me. Like we've talked about it already, of like figuring out, all right, how can I do this full time? How can I essentially live in the gym and be able to provide people this experience while also like making a living and then also getting my training in, So for everyone out there that's on that path, good luck, bro. Stick with it.
Yeah.
So as a do-it-yourself person, man, like what was it like for you to go into affiliate for the first time and like be coached on the regular?
Well, it was definitely humbling. I felt, when you lift by yourself and you get pretty strong, like for an average gym goer, I had later learned that I was not strong at all, but I thought I was strong. Right. So I guess I had a little bit of an ego. I did have a little bit of an ego going into it. And I was humbled very quickly, right, by just being surrounded by very talented CrossFitters, and they were really good and they were exceptional athletes and they had just great engine. And I did not have that. I had some strength. I could do some of the movements, but didn't have much stamina or endurance training, none of that background. And I just got my butt kicked for a long time. I still get my butt kicked now, but I didn't really know what that felt like. Right. Like I went into the gym, I put 5 pounds on the extra 5 pounds on the bar according to my program, and I hit it. And I didn't really experience much failure. Like I really didn't. And I learned that's because I wasn't pushing myself anywhere close to my potential. And I had to get that kind of unlocked by coaching and all that stuff. But there was like an initial shock where it was like, yo, what the hell is going on? Like, do I just suck? Like what is this? So it took a little bit to allow that to drop down so I could start becoming a sponge and learning. But I guess that was the initial kind of reaction to it. Yeah.
So when do you decide to transfer over to start coaching other people and working with other people?
So I started CrossFit, like I guess officially in 2012, and I started coaching in 2016. So the first affiliate that I went to was very small. It's basically just a garage, and everybody was super tight knit and wound up closing down. and we moved to a different affiliate that was a little bit larger, and there was a coaching opportunity there. And I was like, kind of always in the back of my mind, like, hey, I want to get my L1 because I love CrossFit and the methodology and all that. Like I was a nerd, man. Like once I was like, all right, like you're not as good as you think you are. You're gonna have to start learning, like break your barriers down and just listen and be a sponge. Then I really started to nerd out on it. And coaching was something that I knew I wanted to do one day, but I didn't really necessarily have an opportunity to do it. And when we're at our new affiliate, they needed a coach or coaches, and they offered to, front some of that L1 cost. So I signed up, and took my L1 and started coaching. And that it was just as kind of as simple as that, and naturally fell into that role. So it was just, I was able to like nerd out with other people and use that work that I put in for that type of stuff to help other people that genuinely need it. And I think once I started to see that in front of my eyes, it was even more addicting than just doing CrossFit, right? Like it's like trying to spread the word, too. So
you feel like you're even more into it now, right? Like you're like, okay, like I love this before, but now I love it even more. As a person that's like picks it apart by yourself and like kind of picks things up easily or has the ability to teach yourself, what was it like for you to work with people that maybe don't have that ability?
So there was definitely a learning curve with communication in the beginning. Like I was super passionate and nerdy about this stuff, but it's like I can't tell a regular member, hey, you're not engaging your posterior chain, right? Like they don't know what the hell a posterior chain is, right? So I think there was a learning curve to like learn how to communicate the stuff that to people to get them to do what you want them to do. And once I started to kind of figure that out, that's when everything started changing for me. Cause I was like, all right, so like, I'm kind of like a doctor, right? Like the doctor knows everything about the body, but if you need a patient to do something, like you're not going to just tell them all this technical crap. You need to kind of figure out ways to connect to them. So I just made that more of a priority and, just trying to be a better coach that way. I guess that's kind of how it was in the beginning, and then how it started to go as I started to do it a little bit more. And then once I started really connecting to people and seeing them get results, then that was like amplify the addiction even more.
Right. It makes you double down on your commitment to it, because now you get to share in their results, not just yours, but you get to be a part of other people's,
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. So we are, I think, 14 years into the CrossFit Games, something like that. Like it's 2024, 2007, so even longer than that. If you had to pick like a golden era or a golden time period of the CrossFit Games, like when would you say has been the best year or years so far, or your favorite? I guess we should say.
Man, that's hard because there's really just I guess two eras that I would have to answer that with. So the first one, the Rich Froning era. Come on, man! Like it just doesn't get any better than that. That was so cool. Sure. It was like CrossFit was transitioning into like corporate, if you will, right? So it was like
legitimate sport.
A lot of grassroots, just like crappy videos, like just like crappy looking websites and dirty looking affiliates, and like we made our own equipment and that style, but it was just starting to get legit, right? Like that probably realistically is my favorite era of CrossFit because that's when I started to fall in love with it. But then the era that followed that, like the first few years of like Reebok and like getting more legit and like Matt Fraser coming up and like, that whole style was also incredible because just to see that transition from this is something that we like, we do in our backyards, in our garages, in these tiny grungy little affiliates to like, now you got like a $30,000 outfitted rogue gym and all the amenities in the world. And we're on, ESPN and stuff like that was cool too. Cause it's like, I almost felt like I was a part of that in some way. Right. Like I was with it as it grew and now I'm here now and it's on the top. So I'm going to answer with two answers with both of those.
I love that. I mean, I feel like that's like right around my answer too, man. I mean, I think my favorite era was the the beginning of Fraser, the end of only the beginning of Fraser,
Sure.
like the 2016 through like 19,
There you go.
like golden years of not only the CrossFit Games but also the CrossFit Open. Like
Yes.
the end of the 5-week era, the very beginning of the 3-week era. If when we still had regionals, there
Yep.
was no quarterfinals, even though I think that's a great addition. Like I feel like everything was like as almost as perfect as you could get it because we combined that grassroots like you talked about, but we were like on ESPN too.
Yeah.
I have a lifter right now who got into CrossFit because she read Catherine's book, and the book was birthed from that era.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Next up,
Yeah.
who's your favorite male games athlete in all the years, and who's your favorite female games athlete?
I mean, favorite male athlete has to be Matt Fraser. There's a lot of close seconds, but first of all, there's a Burlington connection. So, we grew up around the same area, kind of, like I lived in Burlington for many years. That's where he's from.
Hell yeah.
He was a skier. I was a skier. He was a crazy devoted CrossFitter working out in his like parents' basement. I did the same thing. So there was just a lot of stuff that I used him for a lot of inspiration, before.
Oh, Fraser in the basement with the EMOM clock and the rower, man. Oh man.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I worked out in my parents' basement too. Like when I was my first affiliate, right? Like I was just addicted to more, right? So like I built a shed in the backyard. That was my shed gym. Before that, I worked out in the basement. I was doing extra workouts there. I was following the Outlaw Way. I was doing weightlifting programs. Like I was working out like 6 hours a day, right? And I used a lot of Fraser's, life as inspiration. So he's got to be my favorite male athlete, hands down. Female, it's a little tougher. I think I probably go more in stages with that. Right now, I would have to say Ariel Lowen. Again, I'm an everyman's type of CrossFitter. Like I appreciate the extreme high level athletes that are able to do this as a career, but I appreciate the people that are able to make it work without all that extra help even more. Yeah. And I know Ariel Lowen is a mom and she works out in a garage most of the time, and she's extreme elite athlete. And you could say the same thing for Matt, right? Like Matt came from nothing. Like Matt was working out in his parents' basement with the ceiling so low that he couldn't stand up a snatch, that's where Matt Fraser was born, right? Like he got a lot, obviously, got a lot of help as he became a serious athlete, but he didn't come up as a teen and then, start getting coached by one of the big training camps. And then, immediately like we're going to the games when we're 19, 20 years old. Like, no, I don't relate to those people. I think that's awesome. Those athletes are great. I think the sport needs figures like that. I think that's healthy for the future of the sport, but personally, I don't relate to those people. So I'm not huge fans.
It goes back to the age-old thing, right? Like we connect with the CrossFit Games athletes because we know the pain of what the workouts they're doing. When we see them do grace at the games, or the snatch ladder. Like mostly every CrossFitter has done something like that. Like we don't know the exact way it feels, but so see people work out in their garage gym. It's a very relatable thing.
Yeah, and it's. I also love that it can inspire ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Right. Like that's something that I grew up with my dad being a pro bowler, right? Like he worked at the bank, but the guy could bowl like no other. Right. And would bowl till his hands bled. And it's the same thing with CrossFit, some CrossFitters, right? Like they're regular people. They're moms, their dads, they have regular jobs, whatever, but like they still train a couple hours a day and like they achieve elite levels of fitness, and it's possible, right? Like there's a lot of other figures out there that have done it, and I'm just drawn to that, right? And on whatever level, right? Even if you're somebody, I don't want people thinking like, hey, if I start doing CrossFit, I go to the CrossFit Games, because that's totally not realistic at all. But I'm saying like, but no, you can do CrossFit and dedicate to it and structure your training and get better and do competitions and, in your appropriate division. And you could step on that podium if you put work in, like you can get hardware, like that's totally a realistic thing. Just different levels.
Do things
right?
you could do things you thought you weren't capable of, by working hard,
Exactly. And it will teach you that like impossible stuff is possible, right? If you just have dedication, and that bleeds over to other areas in your life too, you know?
Yeah.
Do some competition
For sure.
training for a couple years, get your butt kicked in some crazy situations, get close to, get a top 10 finish, step on a podium at a local comp or, like a regional comp or something like that. And your emails are going to be a lot easier.
That's hilarious, dude.
Yeah.
So like, speaking of like the training camp kind of thing, I want to ask you first, do you have a favorite training camp of like the kind of the ones that are out there, like Misfit, Mayhem, Proven, all those different ones? Do you have one that you lean towards more where you're like, I follow these people, I like what they're doing, I like their programming?
Yes. So Training Think Tank, wearing the shirt, shout out TTT.
TTT.
Huge Training Think Tank fan. So I started following them kind of like right when they started to get a little bit more popular, like 2019, 2020. It used to be called the TTT Design, and it was just their blog. So like I was at that time working out in my garage. I wasn't at an affiliate anymore, and just followed that programming and then kept with it as it evolved and kept with it. I'm still following it today. I actually have a one-on-one coaching from Training Think Tank. So I've been working with Mia Gianelli since October. So really into them. I love just all their coaches and Max El-Hajj's way of thinking and the way that he designs programming and just the way that he approaches the sport, where they're more about developing athletes and developing skills and that type of stuff than just beating you down. Right. Like I have done all the big name competitors programs, and I didn't feel too awesome. Right. Like it's in my opinion, it's very cream rise to the top B, right? Where it's like, if you're just this elite athlete, then you're going to do fine. But if you're not, like, you're probably going to get beat up, injured, and hate CrossFit.
Yeah. A lot of them is like, hey, anyone could, like, a lot of them program in a way that, like, if you're elite and you come do this, no matter what we're doing for you, you're going to get better, versus like we can take people that may not have it built in already and develop them to be better.
Yes. That's what Training Think Tank, in my opinion, has always been about. It's been about more development, sustainability, everything that they always like to say, play the long game, right? Like what's your end goal, right? Like, and how does that fit in your daily training? If your end goal is to, do a competition in October and it's March and you feel like dog crap, then figure something out. Like, you don't have to kill yourself, right? Like, you want to be better in the open, and you're really good at, you have a great engine, right? But you can't do toes to bar to save your life. You can't string them together. Okay, well, we're going to work on toes to bar, and we're going to figure out how we can make that movement more efficient and make your weaknesses better, right? Like that's what they're about. It's more about developing as an athlete over a long period of time versus we're just going to beat you down every single day until you become this specimen.
Right. So I think that especially after watching the past few semifinals, one of the things that people should like walk away with, like especially the aspiring competitors, is that like, yes, your strengths can put you in a good position, but your weaknesses will kill you. They will take you out of competition more than your strengths will put you in the lead. So you got to go work on all those things. So let's talk about like what I call like the big three of the training camps, like Mayhem, Proven, and Hard Work Pays Off, right? Like I think Mayhem might be in a little bit of a different category, especially with this question I'm going to ask. But do you think that Proven and Hard Work Pays Off, do they add to the collective CrossFit atmosphere, or do they take away more from it? Like CrossFit training, CrossFit games, and like CrossFit educational staff and all that. Are they competitors or are they allies that help grow the brand?
So I think they're all allies. First off, I don't think they're taking anything away from CrossFit. I think that the market that they're hitting at this point has developed to become a more niche market of our community. So if you want to hop in the time machine and go back to 2014, right? When competitors programs were in their their infancy, outlaw way, and comp train was just starting to get off the ground and stuff like that. What's Rich doing? You saw a lot more of the Gen Pop CrossFitters thinking that was going to make them better at CrossFit, right? So they did it and they killed themselves. A lot of them got injured, right? Or maybe even wound up walking away from CrossFit because of it.
I was gonna say a lot of them are just walked away.
Yeah. So like, I think back then, those types of things were probably taking away from the community, right? Because it was just promoting a message that like, this is what you should do if you want to get better at CrossFit, which isn't necessarily true, right? Like it's, if you want to be fit and like look good, like you don't have to do this stuff. But I think nowadays when you have your provens and your hard work pays off, like they're not taking away from anything. If you're wanting to follow those programs, first of all, they have like 60-minute options, right? So if you're somebody that's just a garage gym goer and like just wants to get a workout in, like you can get that from those training camps.
Right.
But you know, whatever, and they have different levels for competitive training. So I think that whole world has evolved so much, and I think they're huge players because they have the names that are associated to it, and a lot of it, what we do is based around motivation. So yeah, if you're a big Matt Fraser fan, or you know, you like Hop or Katrin or whoever, like yeah, you're gonna want to follow Hard Work Pays Off. If you're a big Tia fan, you know, you're gonna want to follow Proven. Like it, you kind of connect to your favorite athletes, and like if you're in a position to follow your own programming, you're going to gravitate towards those. And I think they're all good, honestly. I don't think they take anything away from it.
I love that. So like kind of going off what you just said right there, what do you look for? It could be one thing, could be a couple of things in a gym. Like when you walk in or you start learning about a place, what makes you go like, oh, this is the place for me? So
first I like to see a lot of more hands-on instruction. You know, I think you made a post about this. The time clock coach. Don't be a time clock coach, right?
Don't be that guy.
If I see that right away is a disqualifier for me, because that tells me that there's either some disconnection between management and coaching, or if it's an owner that's coaching and acting like that, then they're checked out, right? So no checking out. I want you to be passionate and hands-on with your coaching. I think that's the first thing that I see, because I know that means that the people that are in charge of that building are keeping that spirit high in those walls, right? Because they're all about their craft and they're pushing that passion onto their members. And frankly, I just want to be around people like that. And I don't want to be around people that just start the 5 o'clock class and say, here's the warm up, and then here's the workout, and this is the weight, and here's what you should do to scale. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Beep.
Right.
I don't like that. So I guess that would be the first thing, would be, how do the coaches coach? How do they talk to the members? You know, that type of thing.
I love that, dude, because one of my big pet peeves is like coaches that put their warm up on the board. Because like, I come in with a plan for my class, and it's like not even just the fact that it's on the board. It's like I may have to pivot because of who walks in, or like anything could happen. You know, it's like, all right, this warm up's just not appropriate for what it is now, and I need to be locked in enough that I can change it on a go. And it kind of like takes the instruction off of you and it puts it on to them. Like, hey, this is what's on the board. Go do this, you know? So man, if I see a coach doing that, I'm like, I'm the pet peeve Wednesday. I'm putting you in as that. And like, know that if you do that out there, you're my pet peeve every week, you know?
Like it's,
you're there to teach, you're there to coach. It's in the job. Like next up, man, like, what are you hungry for? What do you want out of your athleticism and competitive next? Like, what's motivating you right now?
So right now I've dove into coaching a lot more recently. I've been coaching at CrossFit Generation. They've been awesome to me. I love it. I love the members. I love the atmosphere. They're one of the coolest affiliates in the area, one of the first affiliates in the area. So I'm very happy to be there, and, just pushing that as much as I can. Right. So being the best coach I can, harboring that community, super into that. So that's side one of me, and side two of me is being the best CrossFit athlete that I can competitively. I went through a little bit of a rough patch more recently, right? Like I kind of got burned out on CrossFit around 2018. I was just training a lot, and it was that point in the sport where it was like, okay, well now the super athletes are here. So like, not going to regionals. That's a pipe dream. Like, right. Like, what am I doing it for? There wasn't a ton of local comps. Like, your Wadapaloozas and stuff like weren't super, they were around, but it was just kind of willy nilly. So like, there wasn't a lot of competitive outlet for the sport for like an elite intermediate is what I like to call it. Like somebody that's like, wants to be competitive, but like isn't going to be going to the CrossFit games necessarily. So yeah, I got a little burned out on it and took a break, did some other sports. I raced mountain bikes. I dabbled in MMA. And then I had a couple injuries from those things. So once we recovered from those, I didn't know what I was doing. And I started doing CrossFit again and was like, I want to like actually dig in this time and like just be the best that I can be. Cause there are way more outlets now to compete for, the regular people. So, that's my goal, right? Be the best athlete possible, see how far we can take this thing. I'll be a master athlete pretty soon. So I'll have a new set of leaderboard, right? Like,
let's go.
Yeah. Like I see that with my wife, right? Like she competes in 40 to 44 and she crushes it. And like, she finished in the top 500, right? Like, so like, I want that for myself and, I'm not going to stop anytime soon. So just training as hard as I can, as smart as I can. I have a coach now, it's the primary driver in my life at this moment is like being an athlete and then being a coach. And then I have my regular 9-to-5 job, but we could talk about that too. But
That's funny. What was I just going to say? Do you have any competitions on the schedule or things you're looking forward to doing, like what you want to get into?
Nothing yet. I may have overcommitted a little last year because I was like, I'm a very much like a trial by fire kind of guy. So I was like, all right. So, I did some comp training for like, a couple of years, whatever. Like, all right, let's start doing some competitions and like got my butt kicked last year. So a little burned out on that one. So I don't want to overcommit. I didn't commit to anything this year. When I got signed up for one-on-one coaching, the training think tank, my primary goal was like, hey, we're going to listen to our coach and we're going to take my coaching stuff and try to just, like put it somewhere else for right now. Cause like, this is a professional that's going to come in here and make you better. So we're just going to focus on that and just really dig into that for at least like a year until we can start thinking about competing. But, there's some things maybe October-ish I might want to do. I definitely want to do all the qualifiers for Wadapalooza, TFX, like those types of things. I'll probably do the Q just for fun. I'm not going to the Rogue Invitational at all, but I saw some of the workouts last year. And some shit like that. Yeah. Yeah. Like I just saw some of the workouts last year and they looked like they'd be kind of fun. So, just, I guess, more competing in like a friendlier environment where it's just like, I'm just going to test myself on this leaderboard. And if we go to the competition, we go to the competition. Otherwise we know what we need to work on, but no rush.
I love it. Just see where you stack up is a big part of the game, see where you stack up year after year. Like you got to get your skin in the game and that's like how you do it,
Yep. I also want to do it safely and make sure I don't get injured. I separated my shoulder fighting and it was a little shaky coming back with some movements. Basically, I had to totally relearn how to snatch because my upper back was turned off. So like that type of stuff just takes time too, right? Like I'm not trying to rush it. My endurance still sucks. So I'm also just pounding that. And, my strength is pretty good. Like at this point in my life, I don't think I need to work on strength too much. So just a lot of running, intervals, cardio, burpees, like all the stuff that I've more or less avoided. We're just hammering that. And then we're also just trying to build that upper back shoulder up and try to be strong there.
I feel that, man. I think that one of the first keys to taking your athleticism to the next level is letting your coach so that you could just athlete and don't have to be athlete and coach at the same time. Committing to that will take you so much farther than just what's in your programming,
Yeah. Yeah. And even just because if you're following like a regular, competition program or whatever, that can mentally tax you too, because there's so hard to fall into like, what should I do? Do I need to scale it? Like, what if I can't do all this? Well, what if I can't do this on this day? Well, what if, and then I have my regular life. Like, what if work was really stressful? What if I have to coach extra hours? Like, what if I didn't get great sleep this night? Right. Like, I had to make so many decisions, even following another program, that I felt like that negatively impacted my training. So now I am decision free, dude. Like, when it comes to my training, I am decision free. I'm walking into the gym. I'm doing what I can with my best effort. And then if I have any problems, I'm going to ask my coach and she's going to figure it out. Right.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful part about it. Cause then I can actually have peace when I work out too, which is a huge mental boost as well.
Right. And you know what Yoda said, man, there is no try, there is only do, do or do not. So
Exactly.
like when people try to think too much, it just throws everything off. So.
Right. Yeah.
Hell yeah. That's what it's all about. All right, bro. This has been a great episode. Dogs, we're about to get out of here. I hope you guys I have no idea which day I'm going to drop this. I hope you have a great day, whatever day it is out there. Justin, man, thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man.